Hello and welcome to another one of my thoughts videos. In this one I want to continue with the matrix theme of corporations. In the last video I mentioned that the 14th Amendment of the United States allowed corporations in the United States, wrongfully though, to become persons and subject to the laws of anybody else. Well, the matrix theme gets even deeper than this. That's strange enough on its own, but the story started a lot further back than that. Now, as you may remember, the corporations really started back in the Roman times, and then throughout the history of the planet they have been controlled by various governments and kings and queens and all of that sort of thing. Well, by the time the United States got underway by moving to the United States, or the continent where they are, the government that was set up wrote a constitution called the Constitution for the United States of America. The wording of that and the way it's written is very important to take note of. That was written in 1776. Because after a while, only 95 years in fact, it didn't take the bankers, the corporations and the bankers, the Bilderbergs and all those of Europe, who had their eyes on the United States, to get into action. As mentioned also, the French and the English wanted to take the United States, the new colonies as it were of the United States, to become part of their kingdoms, and the peoples of the United States refused both of them and then had a civil war. Well, the Civil War, the bankers, the corporations of Europe had a lot more experience than the people in the United States and had been going for a lot longer and were able to finance both sides, the North and the South, to be able to do the Civil War. And that Civil War left the country in big debts. So this was the opportunity that the corporations of the bankers of Europe took advantage of. Very sneakily, in a very important date, 1871, that's 75 years after the Constitution was made, in the 41st Congress, and they made a law in Section 34, Session 3, Chapter 61 and 62, where they made made a law for the District of Columbia, which is only about 10 square miles or something like that, similar to that which was in the city of London, which we know is the centre of the banking world, where all the really bad guys operate from, and the rest of the world is subject to. Well, what they did was that they took the Constitution of the United States, they formed a corporation, and the corporation, they gave it almost the same name. Now, as I said before, the Constitution was written for the United States of America. They made this corporation and called it the Constitution of the United States of America, and wrote it in capital letters. They took the Constitution for the United States of America and made that their charter. That means their rule book for how the corporation was going to function. So the Corporation of Columbia in Columbia was therefore used to cancel the debt to the bankers in Europe. So the government of the United States formed a corporation, called it the same name with one word change and capitalized it, so that the people basically wouldn't figure out that they had made a corporation with the same name as their country, and that corporation they basically sold or used as collateral to cancel the debts from the Civil War. Now, from then, that corporation, which was established, a business basically, then started to usurp and get into the American politics and basically took over the entire country. So that nowadays, the United States of America is actually a corporation. It's not actually a country, and that started way back in 1871. Now, the United States is not the only country which has been taken over by a corporation, literally. The entire country, including its citizens, then became possessions of the corporation and are traded and traded for and everything as objects and possessions of the corporation. I found out just in recent months that Colombia, the country of Colombia down here in South America where I live, was also turned into a corporation back in 1948 or 43, 45, somewhere around there, in the 40s, just around the Second World War, before or after, can't remember exactly. But Colombia is also a corporation. We are not actually a country. And the constitution that we run under is really the charter or the rule book for a corporation that everybody belongs to in this country. Doing further research, it took New Zealand, where I am originally from, until the 1980s, 85, around there, when they corporatized every single government department and also established a corporation called New Zealand. And all of these countries, and you can look it up on the internet, as to all of the countries, virtually all of the countries around the world are now corporations. This is how they manage to do all their deals, and why the bankers are able to manipulate and control the countries through the finances. Because the bankers, sort of those ones centred in the city of London and in other places around the world also, the countries borrow and pay back and do all their business dealings as corporations, not as countries. Any sovereignty that we have still remains. However, we are duped into believing that we are sovereign, when in actual fact all of our finances and everything has been handed over voluntarily to these corporations. And they tell us as corporations that we are being looked after by the governments of these corporations, when in actual fact we are mere chattels of the corporation. Now this goes down to even smaller than that. A church that I used to belong to here in Colombia also is not even a church. They got smart and realized that there were lots of restrictions and things on where they could build and what they could do in the city as a church. So they registered themselves as a corporation also. And about 40,000 members of this corporation don't realize that they don't actually attend a church, they attend a corporation. So the corporation thing, which is a soulless entity which is hell-bent on profit, and profit itself is also an illusion, and we'll look at that in another video. But there's another matrix thing. It goes further than just the multinationals that you recognize as like Coca-Cola, Disney and all those multinationals. Your very own country is a multinational, or it's a corporation which then is traded on the stock market. That really is a weird matrix things. The heart of the matrix, corporations, and we are being controlled just like in the movie.